right, man. We're here on a Thursday afternoon. LK, Larry, saving the world. You're taking a break, I guess, and we're going to talk a little bit today. And I know I did a little research on this, that the series. It's pretty interesting. I don't know how many people are aware of this. Can you tell me a little bit about this 4 days to save the world?
So the 4 days to save the world evolved from another attempt at doing this called the social movement, which was 2 years ago in Montreal. That one had 4 teams. The producer was working through figuring out how to do it, and he'll be the first to say, hey, we didn't have enough cameras rolling. So they were going to do reshoots. Well, this little thing called COVID happened.
Oh, yeah.
And Canada got shut down, and a bunch of people couldn't travel anywhere, and they kept trying to reschedule, and it just never really happened, and you couldn't do the reshoots. So pivot, right? The guy's smart, pivots, and says, you know what, we're going to do this, but we're going to do it bigger and better. So instead of 4 teams, we're going to have 10 teams, and we're going to bring in really strong people, have tons of cameras, better setups, and really make this something special. So the concept is really simple. You take CEOs and leaders from all over the world, strangers, and put them on teams to solve a global problem. So my team was empowering women, right?
Okay.
Another one had, solve homelessness. There was, solve hunger, all these different things, solve bullying. Truly amazing solutions come out of this. And the idea is that these teams create these solutions that actually can become a business that does what they say they're going to do. And I'll say our team definitely leaned into that, and it's going to be interesting. I think we're going to have a company come out of it.
Really?
Yep.
Really. So now it wrapped. I guess it was it a 2-year run? Is that right? Or
like I said, the first season they didn't get enough footage, so that one's not really going to happen. I don't think. I think that'll be. He'll figure out some way to use it in the context of what's going on. But the first true season will be Labor Day this year, and I think it's going to be on Apple TV and Amazon, and I can't remember the other channels it's going to go on.
Do you worry about paparazzi?
Constantly.
I mean, that's probably an issue with you now already. So this is just going to put a little bit more. And you're on a team. Were you guys? How long did you guys spend together?
4 days.
In a house? Really?
5 days. 5 days. Well, we were all at a resort, and so it was interesting because spent very little time doing anything resorty. It was mainly getting on these, sleeping there, getting on these, getting makeup and everything done, and then jumping off onto a shuttle bus and going to these sites where they would have different things going on with the teams and solving the problems, right? So you have to, it's teams like strangers. So you got to, do the classic storm, form, norm. And what's really cool about it is all the people dropping their egos. And there are some really, really successful people on these teams, and watching them just lean into a cause, which is, one of the tenets that I try and get my CEO clients, how I want them to be as leaders. It's, if you kind of go by the Jim Collins thing, level 4, level 5, if level 4 is a leader, and, the definition of leadership is the art of getting people to do what needs to be done, right? Want to do. And it's want to do it, not just do it, but want to do it. Well, level 5 is getting people to want to do what must be done without me putting my ego in the way, from a humble point of view, where it's never about me. It's always about our cause. So I constantly ask my CEOs, what's your cause? What's your cause? And what was great about this is really fast, everybody leans into the cause, drops the egos, drops the pretense, gets vulnerable, shares their journeys, gives their why they're there, right? And here's why I'm here, which is another big thing I try and get my CEOs to understand. And I have a champion model. I call it the organizational champion model. So unlike Simon Sinek, I actually believe you can win at business. I think people win every day at business, right? I'm not sure. I don't know what the infinite game is, right? So good luck, Simon. I'm trying to help people win every day, every week, every month, every quarter, every year. That's what it's about. And it's about the cause, not about them.
So you get into this room, and you said there was 10 teams, and were there 4 people per team? Is that right?
No. Each team had 11 people.
Oh my Lord. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's a feat in itself. How do you get 11 people, high-powered, successful people to? I mean, you said everybody dropped their ego, but there's still a lot of brain power, firepower in a room. How do you get the storm, norm thing going?
So it's classic leadership 101, right? Everybody has to understand what their role is. And one of the things we do right away is we talk as a team. Okay, what's my superpower, right? What am I great at? Am I great at the spreadsheets? Am I a numbers person? Am I a marketing person? Am I an operations person? What's my talent that I can bring to the table? And we literally divide it up into mini teams to then work on different components of the cause. And again, it translates right to do what I do for a living. One of the things I've talked about with my CEOs is, have you developed a team underneath you that supplements your weaknesses? And do they all leverage each other? Do they all blend together? And did you ever watch the Last Dance, the Michael Jordan? All right.
Oh, yeah. Of course I did. Yes, I forgot that's what it was called. Yes.
So what was great about the Jordan teams is people playing roles. This person's the passer. This person's the defender. Rodman. I mean, what could Rodman do? He could defend and rebound. And he embraced that role. And also in the leadership, in the soft skills of that team. Jordan was the pusher, in your face, let's get better, challenge you. My favorite quote in that whole thing is Jordan tearing up when he sees, how rough he was on people. And he goes, winning has a price, leadership has a price. He's that guy that says, let's take the hill. Now you look at Bill Cartwright. Here's a center who can barely run. But what's his role on the team? Okay, so in those days, he had to protect Michael Jordan because they played rough back then. So he's a little bit of an enforcer. He played that role. But he also was the peacemaker. He was the softer leader. So when Jordan ran someone's face into the ground, he was the one that lifted them up and said, hey, it's okay. Pat him on the back. We're going to be fine.
Well, they had, what a run that team had, but they had years to develop that. You guys had 4 days. So, it's still a pretty noble feat. And I understand that, your business, which, I do want to talk about a little bit, because you're coaching CEOs, and you've mentioned several times already, your CEO clients. They do CEOs. I mean, you think they're aware of their blind spots and where they need development?
Ooh, so that's a bell curve, right?
Yeah.
So I'd say most of them do. The extent to which they're willing to admit how many blind spots they have is up for debate. But most of them know they want to work on it. It's interesting. I think sometimes CEOs get this bad rap. That, they're all about them, and, their egos are so big. And, I find the exact opposite. Most of the CEOs I know lean into being humble. They lean into how great my team is. They're truly about the cause. And there's a little bit of a, maybe it's a spoiler, right? Because if someone's really willing to work with me, they've already raised their hand and said, I know I need some stuff. I need to work on some stuff. I mean, I don't get the person that says I'm great. I don't get the lone wolf guy that, I'm the smartest guy in the room and I've never heard anybody tell me something I didn't already know. And I've met those people.
Oh yeah.
I screen them out. Like they're really easy to screen out. And I just tell them, look, I can't help you. Everybody's not for me and I'm not for everybody. And those people are not for me.
Well, so, because I know a lot of times we've done this process recently, the whole 360 assessment. And,
oh, sure.
Our CEO was aware enough to participate in it, and he wanted to be the first one who had the process to kind of set the tone. And I mean, I found this with him and with just about everybody. This was a senior leadership exercise. There were very few surprises for these people.
Right.
We know kind of, and some of it is, like you said, will they admit it? And the other part is, do they care?
Yeah.
Or is that just part of how I am, and that's what it takes to get things done?
So a little bit of that. So I use a phrase called, are you a big J or a little J? Big jerk, little jerk. you do have to have a little J in you to
Yeah.
rise up through the ranks and get to that level. You do have to have a little bit of toughness. You do have to give people some radical candor and ask them to level themselves up. Probably be sometimes a little harsh, sometimes be a little self-serving. It's part of the journey. What I think that happens, though, is during that journey, people learn lessons. The smart people learn lessons. And you look at, what makes someone a great leader. Obviously you got to be pretty smart. I don't think you have to be the smartest guy, by the way. Oftentimes research has shown it's not the really, really smart people that lead people. It's usually pretty smart, right? And they really have IEQ, their self-awareness, their ability to read the room, their ability to take their own medicine and be self-governing. That self-discipline that gets people to want to follow them.
It's a gift. A lot of that. Some of that you can't. Well, you'll disagree because you're helping them do this, but it seems a lot of that it's very hard to come by if it's not something that you've got in your DNA. But so let me ask you this random question: if you're a young executive, say you're in your 30s, you put in about 10 years, you're on the way up. What is it about being a CEO that you don't know yet?
Ooh, that's a really good question. The pain.
Ooh,
people see the glory. People see this stuff. The trappings, the stock options, the money, the this, the that, how people, kowtow to you, right? Sorry, my dog just decided to bark, of course. How your life is sort of concierge kind of style life. What they don't see is the grind it took to get there. What they don't see is the loneliness of staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m. and actually worrying about the fact that people's lives are impacted by what you're going to decide the next day.
Yeah. It's so timely. And the reason I asked you that too is, the man I work for, CEO, he is he is the most passionate guy in the building about the business. There's no close second.
Mm-hmm.
And he keeps a pad by his bed for those 3 a.m. wake ups.
Yeah.
He has his list. And I don't think a lot of people really necessarily appreciate the focus, the heat that CEOs under. I mean, they still answer to a board, it's not like they have no boss.
Right.
And what's even more pressure, like you said, it's from the ground up, the people they support. If you really have that heart where this is my team, these are my people, you don't want them to fail.
That's right.
And that's a lot on your shoulders.
That's right. And are they all perfectly flawed humans? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's a bell curve of egos and a bell curve of everything, right? Yet my experience is that most of them are really good humans and want to do the right thing and care passionately about their organization, the people in the organization.
Yeah, it's like when you get to the point where you are comfortable enough to hire people smarter than you who can do things that maybe you can't do, but you're still, you're able to kind of nudge them. I've worked for CEOs at all levels of their own development too. It's kind of interesting. The ones that, the bull that charges in versus the one that walks down and just says, "Hey, I'm coming down the hill. I'm the bull."
So let me ask you a question. I want to ask you a question. So this is my social experiment.
Ooh, good.
So I talk to CEOs all the time about how do they get there, what we're just talking about. How do they get to where they trust a team of people who can be smarter, better, than they are? And I think it's really hard for a lot of CEOs to move down that path. And what I try and paradigm it with them, I say, look, what it really amounts to, I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on outside, but the dog is not happy about it. They only have 4 ways they can spend time in my book. Time's your only resource, right? So it's strategic relationships, strategic thinking, developing people, and the day job. And my whole thing is, to your point, and I want to see if you agree, when they learn how to get out of the day job as their percentage of time, when that day job is 10% or 20% or less for sure, but hopefully more like 10%, that's when the magic starts to happen.
Oh, I totally agree. And it's a maturity level thing. I think part of it is you're maybe once you get past the point of I've still got to prove myself. Everybody's looking at me. I'm the guy.
Mhm.
If it takes a lot of self confidence and a lot of inner peace. I mean, you got to have some harmony.
Yeah.
That's okay. I don't have to know everything. That's
Yeah.
why I hired you. That's why I hired you. Tell me something I don't know because this
Yeah.
is if kind of have that learning attitude all the time.
I think the hardest thing is for the person the CEO hires that is in the function the CEO came out of. If the CEO came
Yes.
from a CFO job, I feel bad for the CFO. If it's a CMO, same thing. HR, same thing. Whatever function that CEO came out of, that's the tough role.
Man, that's true. I hadn't even thought about that, but that's absolutely accurate because that's the bar they know more than any that you have to
Yeah.
live up to.
Yep.
Well, and your model, your business model, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but you said that you found that peer group is the most effective path to accomplish this with CEOs.
And I'll share why. So, having been employee one in a business and built a business before, the good news is I can look them in the eye and say, hey, I've been that 3 a.m. staring at the ceiling guy. I've sweated, well, will we make it even, right? In the beginning, because it's a startup. What I find is they're going to wring me out of everything I can share with them and help them with in about a year or two.
Okay.
I hope it's 2 years. Maybe it's more like 6 months. I don't know. But there's a bandwidth to how much I actually know and can share, right?
Sure.
Now, I'm not saying that coaching can't be helpful in other ways for over an extended period of time, but what I will say is you will never wring out the bandwidth of 17 other CEOs sitting with you in a room once a month and all you're doing is helping each other. That's facilitated, and the key here is facilitate. I'm going to take a mini shot at YPO. The thing I don't like about YPO is there's no professional facilitator. So any group you're in, it's only as good as if someone's a good facilitator in that room. And as well as I do, facilitating leaders is hard. It's not a natural skill. Most people don't have it. What's great about the Vistage model is facilitated peer group by someone who's actually been where you've been. And everybody's only agenda in that room is to challenge you in a good way. We call it carefrontation, to help you level up and ask you great questions so you can see all the perspectives about the decisions you make. That's the model. And it's so simple, and it's a high touch thing in a low touch world.
Now, how were you able to continue that high touch during COVID? Was it just using virtual technology?
We Zoomed our butts off.
Yeah.
Right. But everyone knew eventually we had to get off of Zoom because this model doesn't have legs. Again, I would say this, you could do a Zoom peer group meeting thing and it's probably going to work for about a year. But eventually it just gets, you just don't have that touch. That it's the sidebars at the break. It's the little conversations at the desk when we're talking about a topic. It's the humor you get, that human interaction. And, people are pack animals. They need to be together.
Oh man, we're simpatico. I mean, and that's, I'm sure you hear this everywhere right now. People struggling with, all right, there is value to being live at the workplace, and exactly why you want them back, and can you put it in those type of terms that you just did. But I can tell you, our leadership team at the company I'm with, we saw immediate results just going back once a week where we could collaborate live.
Yep.
And it's the hallway conversations and, hey, let's all go to lunch, that kind of, or let's bring it in and go to the boardroom and we'll all eat and keep going through some of this stuff. There's no denying it. I mean, it's an undeniable benefit. It's going to be a harder sell to employees at large because there's still a lot of fear out there and whatnot. But I think for leaders, that's absolutely imperative. It's hard to lead from a virtual environment.
Well, and it's interesting because one of the things I told my CEOs during the start of when COVID was a real thing, I'd say probably last March, April, when it really, people are like, oh, darn, not this March, but a year ago, March, April. And I said, here's what's going to happen. And I used my little Marine Corps background. You're going to learn who the wartime generals are. There's peacetime generals, but what you're going to learn right now is who are your wartime generals. Those are the leaders you're going to want in the future. And I will also tell you, HR has never been more important. And I think actually right now, even more important than COVID, because really, as we know, COVID forced a lot of things to happen just because you had to. It was forced change. Right now, we're in a squishy time when making really good HR decisions is literally, I believe, going to make or break the future of some companies. So what I've been, again, coaching my CEOs on is, was your HR leader a wartime general during COVID? Great. If they didn't step up, you might want to swap them out, because it's actually the next act is going to be more important than that first act.
Oh, man, are we like mind melding? Is that what's happening here? Because, that was the big deal. My whole impetus for finally getting this podcast going too is it was a leadership moment for HR. That was, never waste the opportunity to take a step up. That was it, because it was all on us. And you're going to blow it if you think people are going to remember just that part. You're going to blow it if you don't do this next part right, because that's the part where, now people have been through this. Thank you so much for getting us through this. And you want us to do what now? That's where that is. I had an old boss, and he's a mentor, Dr. Price Pritchett. He used to always say they don't award medals during times of peace. And that was basically what you're just saying, the wartime generals. That was absolutely an exercise in crisis management, and leaders and HR people who got through it, you just got to tip your hat, because that was a rough transition.
Oh, I mean, and it's not over. And that's my point. The win hasn't happened yet.
No, so you're right.
The win will happen when they figure out that right balance of how much in person should we be and how much flexibility can we have. Because I do believe, sorry, Jamie Dimon, I don't think people need to be in the office 5 days a week.
No, I don't either.
I do think it's somewhere in that 3 to 2, more probably 3 than 2, to be honest, until you've developed your culture and your team. So for new hires, I mean, think about this. How many thousands and thousands, well, millions of hires are out there that have never met their teammates in person?
It's crazy. Hey man, I joined as the CHRO during the pandemic when everybody was remote. And I think the only 2 people I knew were my boss and our executive assistant that was helping us out. Other than that, I'll meet people from time to time now that people are leaking back in the office, and you recognize a voice or something, and you're like, oh my God, that's you. Hey, how you doing? Yeah. No, it is. You mentioned it. Humans have to have some sort of human interaction. It's got to be live.
Yeah.
I was having a discussion with one of our guests about the Zoom calls and everything. I think are great if they're done correctly, but how many people won't turn on the camera? They're muted. They're multitasking. I'm guilty as anybody else. It's not the same thing. You couldn't be in a meeting with your boss and just say, don't look at me, and I'm going to take notes on something else while you're talking, because that's what Zoom kind of allows us to do.
It really does. I will say that the other thing Zoom did on the positive side is it made people realize you can get things done a lot faster.
You can.
Yeah. I mean, Zoom does make you focus. I think because you just want to get it done.
Let me ask you this. You work with CEOs, you're talking to them constantly. How often does the topic of their culture come up, establishing the culture?
So here's the biggest non-secret in the world. Every discussion I have, so the cadence is we have the day meeting where they're helping each other, where they bring what we call their issues. An issue can be an opportunity, it can be a challenge. 3/4 of the issues every time are about culture or talent or talent. Every one-to-one, it's about culture. Talent and culture is in every one-to-one. So I do a 1-hour monthly one-to-one with each of them. Always about culture and talent are always on the agenda. It's the thing that they think about, probably second place to how the sales pipeline is going.
Right. Well, so when you're talking about talent, are you talking about succession, or what kind of discussion is it about talent? Do you have the right people on the bus?
So it's I think first topic 1A, so it's a 1A, 1B. So 1A is, have we really analyzed our teams? And remember, this is the CEO. Mm-hmm. And what they constantly tell me is and companies break in the middle. I have this director, 2 levels down from me, got a bunch of C players. She won't swap them out. I keep telling her to. She's afraid to because she says somebody's better than nobody. I don't know if I can replace them. And we finally get him to do it, and she does it. And all of a sudden, her world is amazing. And I tell people, one of my favorite quotes is, you know what makes a leader's life great? A great team.
Yep.
Go through the pain and top grade your team. So that's topic 1A all the time is top grade, top grade, top grade. Do we have, and by the way, it doesn't have to be all A players. We're fine with what I call professionals in place. B players are fine. You're not going to have a team. Anybody says, oh, all my people are A players, they're lying to you. No such thing.
You don't want all A players because then everybody's fighting to be the
a little bit of that, right? What you don't want is a bunch of C and D players, though. And so that's A1A. Then 1B is what I call the stunt double. Does every leader have their stunt double picked out and developing them? Redundancy. If so-and-so leaves the company, who's next up? This is the Bill Belichick genius, right? That for the Patriots. And I hate the Patriots, but I got to give him his due. They knew how to have next man up in that football team. And that's the same thing we need in corporate America. The next person has to be ready. The next person has to be ready. Who's the next person? Hey, Mary, who's your stunt double? Hey, Bill, who's your stunt double? Let's get that next person ready to go.
Yeah, well, you mentioned the Patriots, and we share a hatred for them. But yes, also damn him. He did it better than anybody managing the roster with people that he'd let them go too when he knew they needed somebody to upgrade to let them go.
Yep.
And there was no nostalgia with Bill Belichick. That's for sure.
So my analogy. This is really kind of silly analogy. So in my organizational champion model, I talk about the first duty of an organizational champion is to the organization. So every first filter of a decision has to be, is this good for the organization? And then the next filter is their team, and then the next filter is the individual themselves. And what I say is, you have to think of yourself as the king of the jungle, queen of the jungle, right? So the queen of the jungle is out there. If you have a team of giraffes and there's a short-necked giraffe, that short-necked giraffe's got to go. There's a jungle out there with short trees. Let them go find it because you need long-necked giraffes. That's organizational champion.
That's a great way to look at it. Because as soon as you said that, I know a couple short-necked giraffes. It's a tough thing to do. Well, you say that your engagements with these CEOs, they can be 6 months up to 2 years. I guess you're kind of, ballparking. How do you know?
No, that's if I did individual coaching. So in the peer groups, they stay 7 years. That's the average.
Oh my gosh.
And the only reason they leave is they sell their company or they retire.
Wow. That's fantastic. I had no idea that it was that kind of, it's like a legacy. It just keeps on going. How do you know that they're ready to, maybe they don't need your coaching anymore? How do you know that they're ready just to rely on peers?
So the great news is we both know. So the one-to-ones start morphing into more conversations about life and just, pondering the secrets of the universe. And I'm not joking. It's like literally that kind of conversation.
Yeah.
Because they're getting everything they need in the group. The group has become the focus. So I tell people all the time, two things happen. CEOs sign up, humans show up. That's number one. Number two is they join for me, but they stay for the group. So they join because, hey, we have a bond. We connect. All right, I'm going to just, LK and I, there's a chemistry here. They get into the group, and somewhere around 2 years, like I said, it's about a 2-year cycle. It's less about me and all about the group. And the longer they're there, it's more and more and more about the group, less and less and less about me. Now, they love the fact that I'm a pretty decent facilitator, right? So I do get that. I get that credit. But, like I said, after a while, we've covered every topic I have expertise on, and mainly we'll just play what if. That's what the one-to-one ends up becoming, is a what if. They're talking about this. Well, what if we did that? Or what if we did this? Or what do you think of this? And just riffing,
Well, how do you advise right now? Because, I sort of deviated from the topic, but you have the talent conversation. Culture is... I think culture had a lot of lip service before, maybe. I know culture is kind of a squishy term, but I think it became real obvious what your culture was when everybody went virtual. Yes. It was really hard you're like, oh my God, I don't know what are my people doing or what they're feeling. How do your CEOs, how did they find ways to battle that?
So the teams that had really strong leaders, they didn't skip a beat. They pivoted,
Really?
they figured it out, they moved on, they had good years. The teams that had not the leader, and typically not their direct reports, but the next level, they had really big issues. And I had two CEOs at the end of last year, at the end of the calendar year, call their leadership team in together and basically plant a new flag on the hill and say, look, this. I'm not debating what we're going to be. I'm not happy with what we are. Here's what we're going to be. So you're either on board with me. We're not debating it. We're not discussing. This isn't going to be a consensus. I'm making a call. So either be with me or don't. And 3 of the 7 leaders left because they didn't want to do the hard work. And what her thing was she said, I want bad news fast. We're so afraid to say what's wrong. I'm so tired of being told everything's great, everything's good, and obviously it isn't. So I want bad news fast. That's culture change number 1. Culture change number 2, we are going to become a sales-driven company. I want you to hire, even when we hire operators, I want them with a sales acumen. I want to grow this company because we've been growing like this little inch by inch by inch thing. I'm tired of it. I want to grow big. Okay. And lastly, I'm dead serious now about getting rid of C players on our teams. And I am personally going to be holding you accountable for each layer in your area, these leaders. And if you don't change them, I will change you. And it works.
That's usually where the buck stops. You hold the leaders accountable to keep their teams. You have to, and I don't know how every corporation is. I know mine runs lean. If you have one C player in a team, you're crippled. You can't really operate that way.
Yep. Yeah. You have no redundancy. So, it's just broken, right? It's just broken. And it's just amazing to me how long leaders will let someone be a non-performer and hang around. Oh, because we like them. Well, I like them too, but I don't want them on my business team. Right. Let's go. They can go play softball with me.
Well, they only have 3 years to retirement. We thought I've heard that before too.
Oh, yeah.
3 years, man. Give me a guarantee of 3 years. I love that. That sounds great. Yeah. Now you're a Naval Academy grad, and do you find that a lot of the same concepts of leadership you learned at Annapolis, are they integrated into what you teach right now? They have to be, I would think.
Oh, totally are. One of the things they do at the Naval Academy, the very first, they call it plebe summer, right? Where they just treat basically their version of, boot camp. And they make you rely on the other people. So like, for example, you're learning how to wear a uniform. You're learning your room has to be, so think about a college age kid and like they're inspecting whether your socks are folded the exact way. They give you this manual about how your room has to look, where everything needs to be and how it's supposed to be folded, literally how many inches your t-shirt is, all that. So they teach you this and they say, okay, room inspection tomorrow. And they come in and we don't know this at the time. Yeah. But they deliberately pick one room into they can find something wrong with any room. Right. They pick one room. Lucky me, it was our room. And they say, you fail. And they tear your room up and throw everything in the hallway. And then they go into the other people's rooms and tear their stuff and throw it in the hallway and make us all pick our stuff up and do again. Inspection in 3 hours. And you're doing it again. Once again, they go through, pick our room again. It's on purpose. Tear our room up. We failed. Now, what happens is, you don't know these people, right? These are kids from all over the country, literally. And we've just met going through this thing together. And now they're mad at my roommates and me. There's 3 of us in a room. They're mad at us because we're screw ups. Everybody else is doing great and we're the screw ups. And so they're mad. We're up all night having our room trashed. So it's like 2:30 in the morning. And this started at like 8 in the morning the day before. So we've been doing the room. Now we did get to go to eat because they make you go eat, but we're doing this. Finally, it dawns on everybody. We need to help them. So now people are coming into our room and helping us do everything. So the firsties, the seniors, so the seniors lead the freshmen, right? The plebes, the firsties. That's when they say we pass. As soon as they see the other teams, other mids helping us do our room, that's the magic. And then they tell us the lesson. By the way, there was nothing wrong with their room, and we could have picked any room. We picked that one randomly. Lucky them. It's all about each other. That's leadership lesson number one. It's never going to be you. It's always going to be a team.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, that's we have a neighbor who's a good friend. Their son, I believe, he did his plebe summer last summer during COVID, so that was an interesting thing as well. But I know that leadership comes in all ways, shapes, and forms. But there's got to be a few places that teach it better than the academy. So that's great. And right out of that, did you immediately get into entrepreneurship?
No, not at all. I was really just my career's been this hazard of luck, just random luck. So, get out of the Marines. And I picked Marines over the Navy for a very simple thing. Marines, the officers eat last. And the officers enlisted all eat in the same place, the same crappy food off the same crappy utensils. And when you're in the field, the officer takes care of the Marine stuff first, then you take care of your stuff. It's that servant leader mentality. And I love that. So I get out of the Marines. I'm, not sure what I want to do. Start going to grad school. Not sure I want to do that. I was stupid because I was trying to be an engineer on a third shift at a Hallmark plant when, printing gift wrap while I went to school during the day. And that didn't work. So this guy I know knows the CEO of a company called American Woodmark up in Winchester, Virginia, and they'd locked into the home centers when the home centers had and Home Depot had 8 stores, and they had grown like this and outgrown their own capacity. And they were going to hire the Boston Consulting Group to re-engineer the entire company so they could scale. And Bill Brandt wanted a Naval Academy because, close to Annapolis, he wanted a Naval Academy grad to be the internal facilitator for them for BCG. Okay. And I interviewed for it. We bonded. He gave it to me. So I spent the next 4 years function by function re-engineering the 3rd biggest cabinet company in America.
Oh, wow.
And it was amazing. And Peter Senjay, who was the dean of the MIT Business School, wrote us up in the field book for the 5th discipline as a case study on learning organizations. And that led John Whelan Holmes in Atlanta to find me and said, I want to hire you and do the same thing for my integrated building company. I want to win the National Housing Quality Award and be Builder of the Year, my picture on the cover of Builder magazine. I want to do it in 2 years, not 4 years. So I said no, and then he bribed me, and I said yes, and we did it, right? And I randomly was giving a speech on self-directed work teams. This is when Ronstadt was coming to the United States, and the CEO for North America, this big Dutch guy, Eric Vonk, comes up to me and says, "You must work for me. We're going to change everything in staffing in America." So I did. I didn't know anything about staffing. So I was like the 3rd executive hired to go do that. And, we went from 100 million to $1 billion in 5 years. Then went and wasted some time at Monster. That was a bad decision, but it worked out okay because that's when I ended up doing the startup where I did a recruitment process outsourcing company inside of Spherion, a staffing company. That just rocked and ended up becoming SourceRight, which then Ronstadt bought, ironically.
How about that? It's like there's a lot of synergy there, and I would argue that it's not really random luck. I mean, luck is made by those who are putting themselves in the right spot and taking advantage of opportunities. Yet it knocked it out of the park, then you probably don't get the next opportunity, and so on. One thing that's great though, I was actually on a podcast this morning being interviewed about pivotal moments in your career, things that happen. And, I can think of pivotal careers where I've learned some really hard lessons, and I can think of things that, stuck my neck out, took an opportunity, and boy, things went great from that point on. And I mean, would you say what is like that moment for you?
I'm going to tell you. Yeah, I'm going to tell you one. And it was the wrong pivotal moment.
Great.
Where I blew it.
Okay.
So after the startup went really well and we scaled, went from no revenue to 45 million in 3 years. And I did a deal with Accenture, the TSA. When TSA was being put together, we were the ones that did all the recruiting, and we helped Accenture do that. And the CEO of Accenture's outsourcing business said to me, why are you doing this? This is the minor leagues. Come work for us. I'll make you a partner. Let's do it. So I did, and it was awesome. The $100 million deals were the smallest we did. We did these massive global HR resets. It was really cool. Well, remember Eric Vonk, my Dutch friend?
Yeah.
So he left Randstad and went to be CEO at another company whose name I'm not going to name, and basically threw too much money at me for me to say no, to leave Accenture, to go to this other company that was broken and needed to be fixed. Dumbest decision I ever made. Just did not go well. And I was out of there in a year. And I look back and go, man, I gave up one of the greatest things I'd ever been doing, with so much fun and doing these massive, interesting, fun deals, changing HR for these global companies. And then I went to that place and just didn't pan out. So my pivotal moment was that learning, don't chase money.
Yep. I had that, I had a similar experience. I got money whipped, took the opportunity, and I knew going in, this is not going to be a fit for me. But, I did. And even the mistakes, they teach you something and they direct you where you're going to go next. But that's a good one. And I have to give all due respect to Andrea Butcher. She's the one that hosted this podcast, and she'll kill me for stealing her question. But if you had to give, like life advice to people who are in HR that are thinking, I can get to the top levels in HR, but I don't know that I can get to be a CEO. I mean, how many HR people actually get to be CEO? And I know there are some, but what is it you see? What is the life lesson or the advice that you would give them? This is what you need to learn to be a CEO.
Truly, deeply understand how the company makes money, and really understand the P&Ls. Do the little things, like understand what a trailing 12 is, understand what rate of change means. Look at those things that HR typically doesn't look at. Understand the business. If you get deep into the business, and I know it's hard because you have, HR is really 12 functions, right? Or whatever number it is, but it's a whole bunch of functions kind of merged into one thing called HR. So there's so many things you have to pay attention to. There's so many balls in the air. So I get that it can be really hard, but I would deliberately schedule every week, not once a month, not once a quarter, every week. I would schedule time in the business, learning how the business actually operates, how we actually make money, and what are our, the classic SWOT. What are our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for the business leaders?
Well, and you probably have to be prompting those, invites yourself too.
Oh yeah, you got to push through it. Yeah.
I think that's a big part of it. And if you're waiting for that opportunity to come to you, it's probably going to pass you by because that's not your first choice normally.
Correct.
So tell me about when this thing launches and when we can. You said September that we're going to be able
Labor Day weekend. So they're divided into seasons, or 2 seasons, or 2 halves of a first season. I don't know how you want to call it. So it starts Labor Day, 5 of the 10 teams over a 5-week period. The first episode, Labor Day weekend, and then go to Earth Day 2022. I'm not even sure when Earth Day is, but it's the spring. I know that. The next 5 teams will then have a season, right? 5 episodes.
So which season are you on? Do you know?
I think I'm going to be season 2 because I think they're just going to go by the number. We were randomly assigned numbers. I don't think there's any real thought to it. It's just like, okay, 1 through 10. And I think, we're team 8. So I have a feeling we'll be the second season, which is fine. Hopefully the first season will build up some audience and we'll have a bigger audience. So
do y'all vote people off, other teams, or give anybody a rose if they advance, anything like that?
No. And what I really love about this is it's not about trying to have, like a lot of reality shows like to have villains, right? Oh, this is, they get, hey, you're going to show up how you show up. Now, let's be honest. I mean, the cameras don't lie. You're going to show up how you show up, but they're not editing it to put people against each other or make one person look great and someone not look great. It's about the team coming together for that cause. And there's a lot of emotions in this because and I don't want to give it away. There's a plot twist that happens halfway through the week that changes everything.
Ooh. And
it's super emotional. And I think it's going to really make people, single tear kind of thing. It's pretty impactful.
Wow. Well, I love a good teaser. That sounds good. I think we've binged just about everything else that's available. So I'm actually looking forward to this. It's a catchy line, man. 4 days to save the world. It's got a hook to it. That's for sure. It's got some stickiness.
Yeah, there's a really amazing group of people. It's one of the best things I've ever done.
Well, I'm honored and just thankful that you joined me today for a conversation. I know I don't send out questions beforehand or do anything like that. I like to have conversations with interesting people. And
it's cool.
You and I, we bump into each other on LinkedIn and stuff all the time. I think you post some great content.
Thanks.
If people do want to connect with you or find out more about you, Larry, or you go by LK, I should tell everybody.
Honestly, I don't care either way. Okay. It's fine, Larry or LK. I say LK, but I don't. It's not like I really get upset about it or correct anybody. Honestly, just find me on LinkedIn.
Pronounce your last name for everybody.
Kihlstadius. So it's phonetic. It's a lot of letters. I get it, but it's phonetic. Kihlstadius. Just
okay. I was going to go Kihlstadius, but Kihlstadius I can do.
There you go.
All right. So we're going to look for LK on LinkedIn and look forward to seeing you on this 4 days to save the world. I can't wait to see it.
Well, let's after my episodes here, let's talk again. I'd love to get your feedback.
Yeah, because I'm gonna see. You mentioned you're wearing makeup too, so
yeah, it's embarrassing.
Yeah, you have one of the pictures. I think it's on your LinkedIn profile. It's kind of got that blue steel effect from Zoolander.
I swear to God, I actually did that on purpose too. I was thinking about that. Like, I'm going to look hard like blue steel.
Oh my God, that's hilarious!
Awesome.
That's great. Well, man, it's been a pleasure. Best of luck to you. I hope we can stay connected and talk again soon.
I'm sure we will. Take care.
All right, buddy. Take care.